All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. Welcome to Doppler'S Gear Garage. Hello, hello, hello. Well, it has been a very interesting night for the Doppster. First of all, let me say hello, Chris Alexander. Hello, my dear friend. Always a pleasure. Dan W. Robert Valdez, hello. Let me see if I can make this screen larger. So there we go. Let's do a little bit of that. And Albert, hello, my friend. How are you? All the gear is there where you can't see it. The real world. Mike Rand, hello, hello, hello. Good morning to you all. So I feel ever so slightly unfaithful, but I'm not going to be playing any boogie gear today. Because I'm playing this. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. It is a box, well, there goes the mouse, that's about that big. And this is the IK Multimedia Tonex 1 Joe Satriani limited edition. And this thing is amazing. Now, you're actually hearing, and we've dropped the mouse for the first time today. And just to set the record straight, I have been, hey, what's going on, Em? Spencer, hello, hang on, guys. I have been shooting video all night long, which means the Doppster is just a little bit fried. So you never know what's going to happen. I'm not going to go super long day because I've got to actually finish up the talking sections of this Tonex video. But basically what this pedal is, would you, first of all, what an endearing question. Would I say that my finger style is similar or how would you say your finger picking style is any different or similar to Jeff Beck's? It's a great question. You know, the funny thing is, you know, at different times, first of all, let me just say hello to John. Good morning. Paul Richard, I'm going to help you spend more money today, my friend. See if I can do this again without dropping. There we go. Hello, Paul. Okay, so the deal is, why are those coming in so big? Wow. All right, well, that's groovy. All right, awesome. All right, so the deal is, this Tonex 1, basically, months ago, Joe Satriani basically captured his entire library of amplifiers over at Sammy Hagar's place. And thanks to my good friends at Warship Tutorials, I got connected with a guy at IK Multimedia who actually kind of did a really great job of kind of chasing me down when I kind of didn't follow up with him quite as much as I should. And so week-ish ago, all this stuff showed up. And, you know, the interesting thing is, first of all, how many people are Tonexers out there or have any IK Multimedia stuff? I did some work for Orange. They did a thing called the OPC, which was basically an Orange PC, and that had some IK Multimedia stuff loaded into it. So it was, it's not that I'm completely unfamiliar with their stuff, but that was Amplitude versus the whole Tonex thing, which is all about kind of their next generation of capturing, and it is staggeringly good. The other thing is I will be prone to telling some stories today because there are a bunch of things about this pedal that are very near and dear to my heart. Years ago, as some of you would know, I spent some time studying with this guy, Satch. You know, I don't know if anybody has ever heard me tell the story, but everybody at Berkeley High, Braxel, what's going on, my man? Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. Great to see you again. Hello, hello. These are nuts. So, when I was at Berkeley High, everybody was studying with this guy Joe, and I figured, all right, I'll go check out this Joe guy. And 15-year-old little Dougie and 24-year-old Joe Satriani started doing weekly lessons for an hour for the next 3.5 years. It completely and dramatically transformed and changed my life pretty much in every possible facet. And at that time, Joe was playing in a band called the Squares, and he was using this pair of Marshalls. And one night I got invited to come down to rehearsal, and at the end of rehearsal, I said, "Hey, you want to play through my gear?" And being kind of a 18 or 19-year-old kid, yes, it does. And hello. So the crazy thing is that Joe offered to let me play through this pair of Marshalls, which were really the surfing touring amp. So that rig was basically some pedals on the floor, a CE1 Boss Chorus splitting into stereo, out into a pair of Echoplexes into the front end of each of the Marshalls. Jose, good morning to you, my friend. So the opportunity to play through that amp came and went. So that amp is actually in here, and that's actually what you're... Now, the other thing is, my dear friend Chris Alexander, hang on a second, let's give, Chris, I'm going to call you Chrissy today just because I can. There we go. Where is this? There we go. Chris's question. So we will do a little bit of raising him up. But the thing is that one of the questions he had was about different settings on reverb. So you're actually not hearing the stock effects that are in there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But getting back to the question about right-hand technique. Right around the time I started working on this instrumental album that I am working on, I decided I want to start playing with my fingers a lot. And I didn't really quite know what I was doing, but I just started doing it. And so, generally speaking, if you think about classical, technique, the idea is your thumb is going to cruise back and forth between the bottom 3 strings, the lowest in pitch that is, and then the first, second, and third fingers are intended to cover the third, second, and first string, so you can kind of get this little bit of business going on. But generally, I have a tendency to use my first finger and my thumb, and then get a little bit of that second finger in there. So, Jeff does or did use the pick from time to time. But the thing about his whole approach to the instrument was it was just magic. And so the thing that appealed to me is the way you can kind of milk the notes that in a way with a pick. You get the transient. And the interesting thing about playing with your fingers, there's this bit. You can actually hear the skin on the fingertips. All right. So, Tone X1, we're going to go through some different sounds. And in fact, I'm going to play a demo. Okay. Where to begin? First of all, Tonex comes in a couple of different form factors. This little guy has 20 presets that you can dial up either 2, alternating between, or 3, depending on how you're running the pedal. One of the things that's happened in the different iterations. Thank you very much, Brax. Much appreciate it. And by the way, Andy Wood is a savage player. And are you in McKinney, Texas, or did you kind of cruise in for the show? Because that's a lovely part. I haven't actually been there, but the Guitar Sanctuary is obviously a fabulous venue and music store. So awesome. So my typing today is nothing magic there either. So, you know what? I've learned to kind of read through this. First of all, everybody, thanks so much for joining me. In case we haven't met, my name is Doug. We are spending some time today with the Tonex 1 Joe Satriani Limited Edition pedal. And the sound that I've got right here, I'm going to go ahead and kill the reverb that I've got going because my dear friend Chris, in Chris's questions, had asked a number of things about reverb today. So I wanted to spend some time doing that in combination with this pedal. But again, the primary focus today is going to be around this little box because it's pretty darn magical. It has a number of Joe Satriani's presets that are in there. You can toggle between 20 of them. One of the big things that is happening here in the background is they have added a... Let me find this little spot here. Did I rename it? That should be it, right? I created... Let's see if that's it. There it is. So that is the new Tonex editor. And what's really neat about that is one of the big challenges people have had is being able to kind of update the pedal in real time using the old editors. So the new editor is awesome. First of all, Scott, always a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. Jose, if I didn't say hello already, hello already. Wes, what's happening, my man? Excellent. Way to go. Those Nova guitars are awesome, my friend. Okay, so this is just the raw amp model. And the thing that's really kind of staggering to me is this is, again, is Joe's 1971 it's a super lead. Or maybe the 69. But what I've done for a number of the sounds that is manipulated this in a couple of ways that I wanted to share with you. And it goes for any type of thing that you're trying to do in the framework of a mix. Number one, I think guitar players in the industry are playing really heavy, chunky stuff. Mauricio, hello. Oh, from Brazil. Obrigado. That's about as far as I go in Portuguese, but hi. Thanks for tuning in. Pleasure. So, as I've been kind of learning a lot more about the demo process and recording songs and writing songs, the art of kind of making all the pieces fit is an important one. And generally speaking, one, having too much gain, things start to get really compressed, and you have to turn them up louder for them to be heard. That is to say, a tone like that, I could be really, really super... Turn the volume down here. And I can bring the volume way down, but you can still hear it. So the less gain, the easier it is to hear, and more importantly, the quieter you can have it in the track, which is great. So whatever it is that needs to be front and center, you're able to do that. The other thing is that I have been kind of, since we've been talking about compression and all of this stuff, I've been kind of thinking about the different ways that we can use compression, one of which, of course, is to tame. I'm going to go to the bridge position, and this has got this series parallel switch here that I can make this guitar a little buzzier, if you will, versus, And in that instance, where you might add compression would take those transients away, but if you're trying to get the guitar to sit really quiet in the mix, you're actually taking the very thing away that allows the guitar to sit quietly. So it's that pick attack. So keeping that in mind, the other part of this is compression will not only take the transients off, it also has a tendency to hug whatever the loudest frequencies are that are sometimes creating a little girth in the track, which can be a good thing. One of the interesting things, when we were kind of pulling up some of the different sounds when we were talking about compression a minute ago, 2 weeks ago, the idea is that sometimes you can pull the hips in on a sound where it starts to get a little bit wide in the mids or the lower mids, and it tightens things up, not just in terms of lopping off the transient. So that's another thing that begins to happen. What was interesting about a number of Joe's presets, the ones that I used, is that, to my recollection, every single one of them had some of the built-in compression on, which I thought was very interesting. And so for the dirty rhythms, I took it off because I just wanted just that little bit of pokiness that you get when you aren't using compression. The drag-in amp that's in there, which was kind of the melody and lead sound on there, I left the compression on. The other thing about this unit is, to the best of my understanding, all the effects that are in there. There's first of all, a great noise gate. There's a chorus. There's various modulation effects. And then there is also a reverb and a delay. The delay has got a ping pong thing. The reverb is a stereo reverb. So as I was messing with kind of going from mono to stereo, the reverb is a true stereo reverb, where the delay, when it's in not ping pong mode going back and forth like that, it is a mono delay. So that is to say, learning to kind of pan stuff left and right and making room if you're going to create lots of stereo guitar pairs, you start to run out of tracks really quickly and it gets really messy. So the temptation here is, since it's got a stereo out, or any device like this, is to run both outs, record them all at the same time. And the way this device works is that if you listen to the left and the right, and the real test is you sum it to mono, that is, on Universal Audio's console application, there's a little button you can press where it takes all the left and right information and just brings it what's called center channel. And it gives you the ability to hear where things truly are stereo and mono, because you can hear them go wide or narrow when you get rid of or you add that sum to mono functionality. And it's actually a very useful tool in a number of different ways. Now, I also made a mistake last week that I caught. I was playing through this bad boy. Rick Costa, great to see you, my friend. Obrigado. Awesome. Spark Go is awesome. Writing an album, I love that, my friend. So I was using this in stereo because I am a stereo fanatic, especially when I'm kind of like playing on my own in this type of a situation. But I was talking a little bit about some what I had thought that they might have done when I summed it to mono, and I noticed that there was some comb filtering. Midweek, yours truly noticed that one of the inputs in console was I had the phase flipped. So basically, it was kind of a fresh and moron kind of move. But I noticed that, and I figured I would fess up today, so I'm fessing up. So moral of the story is, when you're looking at your channel strip, whether it's virtual or otherwise, always make sure that things are phase coherent. It was surprising that I made that mistake, but it was a good mistake to make, because for the most part, you kind of make those kind of mistakes once. In any case, what I want to do is I want to kind of bring in a little bit of this reverb here, because I'm going to kind of tie a couple of things together. The great thing about this little box here is that it's got amazing amp sounds. We're going to run through some of them. But the other thing is, Chris had asked kind of about the nuance of reverb. And my favorite go-to reverb these days is a Lexicon 224, and this is the universal audio model of that. And so I'm going to be using it in combination with Joe's Marshall. And one of the questions that Chris had was kind of, what are the main controls you've got? And this is kind of a unique studio reverb. And if I bring up the output on the stereo bus that we're in, bring it down just a little bit. So pre-delay is going to put a little bit of, you can kind of hear that first early reflection, if you will. And it's one of the neat things. Now, the pre-delay in this particular reverb is actually relatively short. Let me get rid of some of the depth and the decay. So depth and decay are, well, so what I'm going to do is make a shorter reverb. Now, the thing about a shorter reverb like that, you'll have heard that in some of the Stevie Ray stuff. They like to use a room reverb in there. And it's got a, hey, Sonia, what's going on? And, before we had a million effects devices to go with. So I'm going to get rid of the pre-delay. I'm going to put it back in. So it sounds like you've kind of moved further back into space. I'm going to bring up the depth here. Add in some of the bass in the mid, and what's going to happen is you're going to hear those frequencies start to reverberate more in time and get longer in those frequency spectrums. Pull the bass back. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit on the sound. And I'm going to pull the mid back. I'm going to bring the treble up. And now we're going to get a little more. All right, let's get over to the editor here. Let's go for something a little. So this is the Dragon, my friend. All right, let me first of all kill this verb that I've got going over here because I got some effects on it. I'm going to pull back. Actually, I'm going to turn all the effects off. And I should have the comp on, so I'm going to pull that off as well. So you can hear the top end open up. I'm going to put it back on. I said I'm going to put it back on. Come on, there we go. You'll get a little bit more sustain. Taking it off. And then it'll fall short a little bit. Now the thing is, I'm going to bring in this verb right here. That's a really pretty reverb. So I have a couple of different modes that I can go through. So that's a plate. So this is going to be a spring. I actually haven't done the spring reverb on this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten the time. And I'm going to bring the mix down. Bring the mix down a little bit more. I'm going to go to the number 4 pickup selection. And I'm going to make sure that that's off good. All right, I'm going to bring a little bit of high end up here in the treble land here. There we go. That's a little bit more like it. Bring my volume in the room here down a little bit. It's not necessarily the most sustaining but it certainly has enough stuff to do that. So Chris, for you, my friend, I'm now going to go back over to this reverb here. And again, in here we've got his time, pre-delay, color, and mix. Obviously, the time is the length of the reverb. Pre-delay, as we talked about before, is the delay before the reverb kicks in. Now, the thing I'm going to mess with here that is one of my favorite things ever with pre-delay is you can use it much like using the reverb. So I'm going to bring the time up a little bit, and I'm going to adjust the color. Brighter, darker. Now all of a sudden it's this halfway, because of the pre-delay, it's kind of halfway between a delay and a reverb. I'm going to And bring the top and down a little bit more. Like if there was a band playing, your average guitar player, myself included, until you hear the trails there, one would be inclined to think, and I'm going to shorten the time up here. Got a really interesting vibe to it. I'm going to take the color all the way out. Jerry Cantrell has a thing, if you listen to him, there was a live concert with Alice in Chains, obviously with new singer, but he rolls a lot of the top end off his delay. And so it kind of sits there in the background in a really nice kind of, if you will, kind of a dark way. I'm going to bring the mix up here. I'm going to bring up the time. And the crazy thing is, by the way, that's all this little box. W-T, you can fill in that last letter. All right, reverb off. Let's add a little bit of delay ski on there. Come on, don't be shy. Now, there's two main modes this delay has. That's normal, and then there's ping pong. There's also tape, and then there is digital, which will be brighter. Bring the mix up just a little bit. I see some comments, so give me just a moment. I'll get over to you. And I'm going to bring the mix down just a little bit, and the feedback I'm going to bring down just a little bit. Sound. Let me add some reverb back in. I've still got that kind of that thing going on. All right, I'm gonna do a couple of things here. I'm gonna extend the time on the reverb, and I'm gonna bring the mix down. That's pretty right there. A little B flat. Interestingly enough, moving up that little bit there made the effects a little hotter. Bring the reverb down. delay up a little bit. Neck pickup. Let's add a little modulation in the mix here. This is going to be that wacky flanger I had on before. How about enough flanger there? There's a chorus in here. All right, let me kill the delay and the reverb here real quick, and I'll be back in the comments in just a moment. Actually, let me go over here to this guy again. Something a little cleaner, and then we're going to head back over and bring the chorus. We got the chorus on, but I need to actually activate it because it's remembering where the preset was set. So let me get my modulation going. There we go. Ooh. Some ping pong delay is going to be really nice with that, and I'm going to go for digital ping pong. Absolutely, whoever was thinking that definitely needs some compression. Gosh darn it. That is just the pedal. I just don't quite know what to say. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Andrew Bonica, what's going on, my man? is that extra noise my that noise is my bar. So it's got a little it's got a set screw. So as opposed to a traditional pop-in or full screw-in bar, well, it's got that's kind of like the main Floydy type of option, right? Of three options. You've got either the push-in, and I don't know for a fact that there's actually a Floyd that has a stock push-in bar, but the other one is where you screw in the bar and then the thing pancakes on the bottom with the washer. Or, oh, no, absolutely. This guy, the FRX, has a pop-in bar. So they do make it. Let's see if I can do this without destroying anything. Get back in there. I tell you what, we'll do that another time. So the deal is, that's one of the things about kind of it is the general curse of a locking fine-tuning tremolo is that eventually the bar starts to loosen up. And in this particular case, you hear. So actually, that was kind of one of the other interesting things as I was kind of working on the track that I played a little bit earlier. The gate is one of the ways that you can also, because there will be, as this thing starts to loosen up, you'll hear that begin to translate into the instrument, which is why, especially if I'm doing something where I want it to be pretty quiet, I'll tighten the bar up so it won't move, right? And that way, when you move it, all you'll hear is that initial attack. And that will translate. Hold on, let me turn the mic off. That will translate into the instrument. But if you're relatively careful, that is to say, helps have the volume up. In the midst of other stuff going on, you probably won't notice that. But there's a really nice gate that's in here as well, which I found very useful for certain types of things where you're wanting to kind of to be able to take your hands off the instrument and have that gate. It's not a noisy pedal, but having the gate just clamp so you can actually not have to be on the volume control if you don't want to be. And that's something that I learned in something that I was doing with the Badlander 25 head that I've got, which was I was using the Fractal Audio VP4. No, I was also doing that with the Dual Rec demo, the reissue, the 90s Dual Rec reissue, where I was just using a gate in the loop, just so that way neither of those amps are particularly noisy. I did it with both, and doing it here, it's a fairly common thing that I'll do, is that I will put a gate after the preamp section to just kind of silence it, but not set it so tight that there's, if you're playing some sustaining thing, that the threshold is low enough that it doesn't cut off as you're doing that. A little bit of fine tuning. Hang on, I've got a little bit of catching up here to do. Okay, Sonny, what's going on? I do have catching up. Hold on. Oh, my word. Hold on a second. Wait. Baby boy. Okay, let's see. Okay. Good. Again, congratulations again, Rick. That's awesome. Now, it says Rich, so I'm a little confused because I know that's my buddy Rick Costa. So, which is it? Sonia, good morning. So, you have been on my mind because I don't know if you can do it with the Tonex plugin, but in doing a little bit of research, I had found that with the IK multimedia stuff, you apparently can use expressions. So I've got to learn how to do this. So although, first of all, as everybody knows, Sonia is the inventor of the Fulcrum. It is a bi-axis or dual-axis expression pedal. So ideally, you could use it to control delay and reverb or whatever assignable things that you might be able to use an expression pedal for. And you can actually, depending on the device, assign multiple things to a common axis. So, for example, gain and delay you could assign to with a little bit of MIDI magic. But the point being, and then you can express that. All right. In any case, so I'm kind of excited to see, where within the Tonex or the IK framework of this is going to be, because I think I mentioned to you in an email that as I did a little bit of research of how you could use Expression Pedal, for me, first of all, you've seen me drop this pretty much every Saturday now. I hate working with a mouse. But the idea of having an effect, oh, sorry, you can't see this, having an effects mouse, it's the greatest thing in the world. The ability to have that, no, let me get both axes, there we go. So the ability to control both axes from a seated position without having to use your foot, and just be able to do that like that would just be a tactile sensation. So yes. So Braxel. So this is the great thing about the new editor. So it officially drops on the 13th of March. So when I first got the pedal, my guy had not shipped me the beta new editor here, and that editor by name is Tonex Editor. Okay. So the thing is, there were lots and lots of people that were frustrated that in real time you couldn't deep edit the deep parameters on the pedal. And so I'm obviously connecting via USB-C, or maybe not so obviously, but I'm just running out a stereo TRS jack into dual TS. Yes, I could run that in digitally, but I'm using my UA audio interface there, and that does not have a USB-C audio input. It's got light pipe and SPDIF. So all that to say, the ability to have that much stuff in there, and the thing is that all of Joe's sounds were captured at Sammy Hagar Studio, and these are Joe's sounds as well. It's not just his amps, but his presets, and so the ability to kind of get in and actually work off of his sounds is really pretty mind-flipping boggling. We're talking about reverb, and we're talking about Tonex. So, baby boy, what's going on, my man? Always a pleasure. Look at you. Hello, hello, hello. Have I tested Tonex 1 versus the original Tonex for tone? Do they sound the same, or is it a degradation of tone with Tonex 1? That is a great question. I have not. Ironically, well, first of all, this just started shipping, so yours truly, although I don't always pull an all-nighter, but I did last night because I've got to put this. Did the demo section I played a little bit earlier. Did that all night long, and then I'm just going to add some talking portions. Then I'm going to send that one out into the world today. So I have not had a chance to check that, but I have to tell you, Larry Mitchell and I have had this conversation about kind of like, just having some sort of pedal that you can take with you everywhere you need to go, just in case you need to sit in somewhere. The quality of the sounds, the models, the library, and then all the effects, and then you basically, as you're working with this guy, right now it's in just kind of on-off stomp mode, but there's another mode which I think you get into by holding this little button down for 6 seconds, one of them, or 3 seconds. You'll have to excuse me because there are things that I don't know about this yet. But the idea is there's also, you also can hold that down, and there's secondary functionality that happens with these controls here as well. And in turn, generally the way this works is it works like a kind of a virtual stomp, in that if you've got your tube screamer down on the floor and you turn a knob, that's just the way it's going to be, and that's the way this works. There is a mode where you can lock it so you don't, in case you bump something there, it won't take effect on the pedal, as I understand. The other thing is, what I've done is I backed up all the sounds on here, because as you virtually control this from the editor, it's the same thing as controlling it from there. So I backed up all my sounds just so I'd have a copy of them. But I am really, really, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. But it is a great question whether Tonex with all the other stuff sounds any better or worse. Well, obviously that one wouldn't sound any worse. Silly me. Good, Rich. I'm glad that you're here, Facebook or otherwise. All right, Sonia. For me, there are essentially two types of reverbs. One that ambient and I always have on. The other that would be in effect reverb to be added special parts that call for it. You know, it's an interesting thing because one of the other conversations that we've been having. First of all, part of what I'm in is oh, hang on. Let me get over to my editor. First of all, hello to everybody that's here. Thank you for spending your Saturday with me. Gosh darn it, I'm not desperate in a classic sense, but I sure do like hanging out with my fellow guitar fanatics. I'm going to go back to a clean tone, and I've got this Lexicon reverb here. The thing that, as I was thinking about Chris's question, the first thing that I did was I just kind of dialed up this nice long well, I think I have a gate on. Hang on a second. Let me make sure that oh, it's the comp grabbing it. Okay. Or it's this pot. I don't know. In any case, my swelliness. In this particular case, what I really, one of my favorite things is these beautiful ethereal. Come on. I know what chord I want to go to. That's really pretty. So those sorts of things, the funny thing is that I am, to be completely honest, I'm still kind of in process in discovering which things about reverb that I am most enamored with, and discovering there's the typical Fendery / boogie spring reverb that most people know and love. But the other thing is that there are people like my buddy Brian Wall from Worship Tutorials, who is a brilliant sound designer. Then there's this guy John Petrucci, who knows a thing or two about sound design as well. But this art of kind of how much you have in the low end, how much you have in the mid, and how much you have in the high end. There are certain reverbs that I just don't like the sound of. I am a big fan of plate reverb, and it's just got a warmth and kind of an organic quality. Let me go to another one of my favorite things. We're going to be kind of mixing it in with the Tonex 1 here. I'm going to bring in, so one of the most famous plates reverbs was at a studio called The Plant here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this is an EMT 140. I'm going to bring the mix down. It's just got a really nice kind of vintagey. I'm going to go for the number 4 position. You take all that lushness away, and all of a sudden it says, it's a really pretty sound. Number 4 position. Middle position. Number 2 position with the series parallel in parallel. Bring in a little bit of that verb again now. A really pretty sound. All right, let me get into the commentos. And Spencer, you're about due for a question, so let me scroll down here a little bit. And if I missed anybody's question, salutations to all, first of all. Good. Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. All right, there we go. He's got on... I knew you were good for it. On Steve I's Patreon page a few years ago, he did an episode on delay. By the time he was done, I think I passed out. Because my guess is it would have been a very long episode. Thank you, Mauricio. This guitar is really... it's relatively new to me. I think I need to give it a little bit of a baby tune here. But it's really, it's about $1,100. It's an SM1. And where is my tuner gone? You were here. The unfortunate thing with locking fine tuning tremolos is that, generally speaking, that's on my bass. Give me half a second. Once you start getting a little bit out of tune, it's a little bit of a war unless you have a digital tuner to make things happy. It just happens. All right. There we go. Let's get this. Oh, by the way, those of you that have locking fine tuning tremolos, one of the things that begins to happen over time is the knife edges on the tremolo will begin to wear out. And one of the ways you can test that is you push the bar into the lower position and you pull the bar into the upper position. I would generally suggest leaving your bar in the lower position, because if you put it into the upper position, when you do a bend, watch what happens with the bar. Well, you probably can't see it, but the bar depresses. And so what ends up happening is you will end up pulling the guitar into that lower position. So as a general rule, on virtually every guitar that I've got that's got a locking fine tuning tremolo on it, I always keep the bar in the lower position for the aforementioned reason. And you'll find your life will probably be much, 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 much better. There we go. Thanks so much, Mauricio. Again, I really appreciate that. Very kind. With great pleasure. All right, Steve. What is that you're playing there, Doug? Dougo, I just got here, so pardon my ignorance. Okay, again, and I'm happy to repeat myself because I do that from time to time. So this is the Tonix 1 Joe Satriani edition. It is available now at your favorite retailer, and it is shockingly flipping awesome. Give me just one moment. I want to just double check one thing. $229.99. And if you own the Satriani library, either with the IK stuff or with the Tonix stuff, you get $50 off or 50 euros off, which I think is pretty cool. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is? You know what time it is. It is time to raise them up. So we're going to do precisely that. If I can find my... There we go. Come on. That's us. So let me know where it is that you're coming from and what it is that you're drinking. I got... this is a little something that my friend Dr. Phil sent through. I'm having an iced latte, and I am loving it. And it's not from McDonald's. Steve did a similar episode on his guide to miking amps. Started with in front of the amp and then back, and then 10 feet out, and then 13 feet out, and then overhead mics. Steve is a fascinating creature that the world and Steve Vai. He is. So I take a walk around a reservoir. That's kind of my main form of exercise. And so I was like, all right, Siri, Steve Vai Essentials. And you get to blue powder. I don't know about you. Anybody out there kind of hears blue powder and just kind of go. He is on a planet that I wish I belonged to, but I don't have that stratosphere. Just an absolutely shockingly talented person. Oh, you know what, Braxel? There is a noise that actually is in my chair. There it is. And does come through the microphone. So yes. All right. Okay. And the crazy thing about Steve is he did his Patreon for like really, really, really cheap. It was, there we go. Yeah, it was $5 a month. There is a push in replacement for the Floyd. So, the funny thing is, as much as some of this stuff, I actually kind of like the fact that I can kind of loosen it up and tighten it up by touch. My first Floyd Rose was before they had fine tuners, so I've been at this. First of all, great suggestion, thank you. And this is one of the very few bars that I've had that's actually the screw-in type. But I'm kind of liking it in that it's really easy to adjust it to where you want it. In that, generally I'm kind of a, for lack of a better expression, a floppy Floyd kind of guy. Except for that is not a good thing when you're recording. But aside from that, it's nice for it to just kind of be able to float around. Nandini, hello. Thank you for that very nice message you sent, by the way. Great to see you. So, Low Pro Edge and the original Edge and the ZR. No, the ZR was a screw-in bar, which I actually really liked. Yes, I have an original Floyd on a guitar from the 80s. And the bar is permanently on. There you go. Will it? And again, kind of just for anybody who does not go that far back in time. Hang on, let's get that message to go bye-bye. Here we go. You would basically push the bar down like this, and then you could get to the bottom side there to get to the nut and the washer that's on the bottom of the Floyd, and then it would be a 6mm Allen wrench, and I've got one around here that you use to kind of tension that out. So it's always possible that you may be able to get that off of there if you're so inclined. Okay. Hey, what's going on, Pleco? Welcome aboard. Great to see you. If we haven't met before, hi. Farrell, what's happening there, my man? Great to see you. I love my 80s Kramer with my single EMG, volume only. Yours look great. Thank you. I'm really enjoying this. Mark Turvey, hello, my friend. How are you? So I want to know where you're at with this Strat journey and this narrow aperture single coil pickup thing. Where are you at? I like Rick. Sounds less tough guy. Rich, I mean. Okay, there we go. You should see me with. I'm all thumbs with these things. All right. Good. Paul, what a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you. How was your week? How was your honey pie? That's what I want to know. Or honey child, excuse me. Honey child. I can't play it, but you know that song. So, Paul was in a band called Murder Bay. That was one of my favorite Bay Area bands in the late 80s, early 90s. And so, Paul, were you in the band when it was still Sticky Fingers? Or were you post the Sticky Fingers? But in any case, there was a guitar player named Mike Carafellis who is a great guitar player, and he had a Charvel with Heineken. I think it was a custom paint job or Heineken labels on, but Paul was the singer extraordinaire, and also Paul makes a mean pedal. What was it? Andy Summers bought all your pedals or something like that, right? Let us know. Tonex pedal, big one, is sitting right beside me, and it works. Tonex one has no expression, maybe via MIDI. So, okay, so we're sequitoring back. One of the things that I am desperate to be able to do is not just use that. I want to be able to use it to control stuff inside the DAW. That for me would be, because I flippin' hate this thing. It's better than nothing, but the thing is that sitting there kind of incrementing things up and down, or then kind of making a selection using the up arrows and the down arrows keys on the keyboard, it's a really frustrating workflow. So there you go. Back to compression amps. How do you retain the liquid feel you dial in at a lower volume when you need to crank up the volume? I find it can get sterile and hard, and you tend to lose that liquidity. It's a really great point. So one of the things that I'm doing is tormenting myself with some of the things that I'm practicing. I'll do it slow enough so I'm not going to embarrass myself totally. But there are certain things that when we don't have any grease on, get much more difficult. And so the idea is not only, for example, all right, so here's the deal. If you always play with delay and reverb, take them off for an hour. And so the idea is, as an example, I'm going to put it on. This is going to be kind of fun. Let's see if I can crash and burn, but not too thoroughly. Let's bring in the reverb again. All that goodness. But but then learning to be able to play with the liquidity and the time. Oh, that's it. And kind of learning to get loose with that, right? So, all right. First of all, got to have a little teaching moment for everybody. One of the biggest challenges is for a lot of players is this kind of how to develop speed in a practical way. So one of the exercises I want to share with you is the idea of taking just this G, A, and B business, but taking it so you basically, for every one of these, one pick stroke, 2, 3, and then 4. And I've been, yeah. So I know I was going to run myself into that. But the idea is learning to take that across and getting that so it's clean. So it's the same idea, but instead of going, doing it across that little major triad. And in turn, there are going to be little spots like that I call burrs. That are the hard part. And so the deal is, the threes there are going to have you go down, up, down, up, down. So basically, depending on which transition you're on, you're either going to be outside or inside. It's going to flip around. Not that wouldn't be the case if you just do onesies. So to say that's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. If you start with a down on twosies, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. But if you do 3, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that guy. And then instead of doing the whole thing, try targeting. Fine. I know I was going to do this. So a 0, nothing on it tone is a great place to have a really good, and you can hear that A string. So it's just a great way to unpack what you're good at and what you're not good at. My speed is better across one string or pairs of strings, but across those strings and then doing the triplets is something that I'm in process on. It's a great exercise to work on because, to your point there, as you're kind of playing, learning to find a tone that has nothing on it. It's actually a very pretty tone. But in terms of having all of this little business, It's a whole different deal. So to your point, Albert, learning to find a vibe at that lower volume where the amp is not giving you any love, and learning to if I add a whole bunch of delay and distortion and all that stuff, it gets a lot easier to do that because the amp is going to compress and all that stuff. But the other thing that I'm really working on doing is like, what happens when I got nothing? And how do I learn to find the feel, most importantly? And you just kind of learn to just kind of relax into it is kind of the slightly long answer. But the idea of just kind of going, okay, if it feels... and learning to just take a breath. That's actually another really good piece of advice. Just take a breath. All right, I hope that helps. Andrew Stevie Ray Vaughan, great to see you, my friend. Always a pleasure. There we go. Come on. So yes, and that is based on Joe's Dragon amp. And let's see. Let me pull up. Here's the Dragon again. I pulled off the gain there, so let me... oh, no, hold on. That's the Dragon, my bad. And I have that chorus on, so I'm going to take that off. I'm going to take the Dragon, though. What I'm going to do here is let's take all the gain and bring it way back. So it's really designed to kind of be like a plexi Marshall. But as you listen to Joe's samples, it's got a soft top end. Plugging straight into a vintage Marshall can be very challenging. I'm going to bring in just a little tiny bit of verb here. On. Time down, pre-delay short, color up, going for a plate reverb, kind of my favorite. To bring the color back and darken it up just a little bit. That was basically at about 5 o'clock. At about 5, if you will. If you think of I should say 1 o'clock versus 11 o'clock now. There goes the mouse. That's the bridge pickup. Let me go to the number 4 position. It's got a nice bloom to it, kind of almost a kind of a dumbly kind of vibe. Once I get my mouse, I will bring the amount of reverb down. Hello. Let's do this. So what I was testing there was seeing what happens when you bring the volume all the way back. How much... it cleans up. It's it's one of the things about an amp, an actual kind of a tube amp, is that you're always kind of playing with the gain structure. What this does well is if I lighten up with my touch. The thing that's actually really nice about this amp is that I'm going to turn the reverb off there for a quick second. Considering how it's got a liquidity to it. Feels really, like I said, liquid under the fingers. And loose in that way, which is really nice. All right, hang on. Let me jump back into the comments here. All right. Dr. Phil, hang on. Good morning, my friend. Thank you again. Appreciating you greatly these days. I am SM1ing it. Steve, good morning. Pleasure, my friend. So, by the way, in case anybody gets a friend request from me on some other than Doug Doppler Music on Facebook, it is not me. Spencer, where are you? Hang on. I lost you there. There it is. That's it. So, and for anybody who doesn't know, you have to be able to pull up on the bar, but basically that is an Eddie Van Halen trick. It's the 5th fret on the 4th and 3rd string, and then the 7th fret on the 2nd and 1st, and then you depress the bar, and the more gain you've got, the better, the bigger the elephant. But you amuse me as well, so thank you. Yeah, Eric, this thing's nuts, man. All right, latte in Colorado. Boy, I'm playing catch up here. Interesting. First of all, thank you for all the crafty ideas. Because the interesting thing that I was noticing was that in one of the Joe Satriani Tonex demos, one of the demo guys had like three different pedals lined up, and they were kind of running, if you will, in series. And the thing that's kind of neat about these. Let me just make sure of one little thing here, which I'm 99% positive. Yeah, okay, so I can bypass the amp and the cabinet model, so I can just use this as an effect. So you could use one, although it holds 20 presets, you can only have either 2 Well, you can either have one and just kind of toggle on and off mode, two that you toggle back and forth between, or there's another mode where you can actually have three active at the same time. I should say three that you're cycling between. So what it means, although, well, there is USB. What I don't know is if you can carry MIDI over USB and get them to talk to each other. But again, Tonex might be a better way. And are you talking about? Hold on, are you talking about Big Tonex or Tonex One? Hang on. Tonex Ones, okay. So I only have the one Tonex One. I have not tried running two of them in stereo, but the interesting thing is that this latency thing. First of all, just in case anybody out there is not familiar with latency, there's two main places you're going to encounter it. One is if you start recording, and all of a sudden you find that by the time your guitar signal gets into your computer, and you're trying to monitor off of an armed track that's ready to record or is recording, and the playback is coming off the computer, you're going to find that they're going to be out of sync. And basically what it is in the processing time it takes to get your sound into the computer and potentially run through some sort of plug-in that's delivering sound and all of these things that are happening on the way in, there is latency. So the signal is late getting to where that sync point is. There are various applications, like Universal Audio has this application console that enables the playback from the computer and your input coming from whatever device you're running into the audio interface, your DAW digital audio workstation, that they meet kind of in this place and time. The other place that it happens is if, for example, and Larry Mitchell was telling me about this, he was playing someplace with his Fractal, and he was on ears, and there was a monitor board, and there was a front of house board, and because of the way the digital circuit was set up, and this is actually a very interesting thing, and a great point, so thank you for bringing that up. There are times, because the funny thing is that I opted to just kind of go, I want to just go pure analog and see how I like, in this case, love this pedal. Do I notice it sounding thin, tinny, or anything? And I'm like, no, I love it. There are times where running purely digital makes a lot of sense because you're not having, in this case, a digital to analog to digital conversion on the way out of that pedal and into my computer. So kind of arguably, I don't have to do it like that. However, I really wanted to find out what it was like audio-wise, and the other part of it is Pro Tools has been a little persnickety, so it's not wanting to load the Tonex plugin. Not any fault of IK Multimedia. There's another application from another company that's not wanting to do it with. And I think the problem is I updated my firmware or my OS, and Pro Tools had not cycled through that, and so it's causing a little bit of a drama. Welcome to my world. It's a great question. Again, so when and where digital can get you into trouble is if, for example, you're going to go into some digital snake by the side of the stage. That's going to send the signal to the front of house, and somehow, and then that needs to make some sort of round trip back to the monitor person before it gets to you, which is what happened with Larry. And now all of a sudden you've introduced latency into that setup. Generally speaking, because it's digital latency, if you ran an analog signal, it probably would have solved all that problem, because if you think about somebody that's running in-ears, they kind of have to have that time alignment. But if you're sending a digital signal that's getting to front of house and coming back, there is digital latency as it's kind of doing its thing. So again, Larry Mitchell, the man of many stages the world over. It does include Joe's cabinets, although I think there is a finite number of cabinets. There is what I'm going to presume is a 1987 1982 B, just a traditional Am I getting my Marshall call letters wrong? So it should be a 1982, I believe. So a traditional Marshall kind of quote-unquote JCM-ish slash Satriani-ish JVM era Marshall cabinet that will be loaded with the Celestion G12 T75s. I like to call them 75Ts, but it's the T75s. And that is the most common cabinet anywhere in the world. There's also one that the cabinet he calls Stained, which I think is one of his favorite cabinets. I've got a buddy that buys a bunch of Joe's old stuff, the Outcasts, including some stuff that's here that's kind of crazy. And that stuff, Joe cycles through a lot of gear, so all that to say is that those are the two cabinets that I think are probably his favorite. Hang on, let me just double check one thing. No. Okay, I didn't see it in any of the photos, but blatantly, I'm seeing the nomenclature for the Dragon cabinet, the Dragon 412 cabinet. So there is a. Sorry, 1960B, of course. No. So, my bad. The 1982 is the old Jimi Hendrix style cabinets. So, the 1960 is a traditional. I have I want to, before I forget, I want to make a community announcement. If anybody is in the Los Angeles area, let me find, there we go. This shelf. So this poor guy, I sent it, first of all, this shelf is for sale in Los Angeles. The gear is not included, for $500. And that is a killer deal. And I messaged the guy. I said, "Hey, I'd like to include it on the show today." And he said, "No, that's fine." And this is kind of, I'm putting the pieces together after my studio got burned down in the fire. So, and if anybody's in Los Angeles and fancies, because as I spend an increasing amount of time just kind of looking on Craigslist, sometimes I just need to kind of a little mental wasabi. There are a lot of shelving units that people are putting their amps on that are not designed to carry the weight that their amplifiers are actually on there with. So having a shelf that is actually strong enough to support your amps is a thing. So this gentleman, if you go, he is in Pasadena. So if you happen to go to Craigslist in Pasadena, if you're in Southern California, he's looking to sell this thing. It's $500. That's a great price on that. And he seems like a genuinely really nice guy. And I think he having a little bit of a hard time, because I think a bunch of his gear got burned up in the fire. So in any case, yeah. All right. First of all, let me. I'm gonna skip past a few things. Hold on. Let me not do that. Yeah, blue powder is just so insane. Oh yeah, no, it's going to be great that Pete's going to get out on that tour. It's going to be excellent, and a lot of fun. Shredward, what's going on? Drinking Pete's coffee. Edward, the guy you sold the Mesa. Oh, the guy who sold me the Mesa 110. I don't know why I'm playing blues, but... Oh, I bypassed the amp. Great to see you. I hope you're doing really well. It's nice to meet you. I've got all my boogie friends in the house. That's very cool. Let's see here. Awesome. Little piece of foam. We'll fix that right up. Set screw. Oh, this guy. There we go. Espresso blend from Starbucks, Oak Lawn, Illinois. Come on. Getting ready for today's Dream Theater in Chicago, Illinois. Excellent. Time to see Master Petrucci in action. So I saw that show. When did we see that, Albert? Like a week and a half ago? I don't think I've had my behind spanked that hard for quite some time. It was severe. Yes, you can. I mean, that's the kind of the whole thing that really kind of blew. Sorry, in case anybody's not seeing the visual, can you use the Tonex right out of the box? Yes, and so I just for $229.99, I just really kind of can't believe it, because it can also function as an audio interface. So one of the things that I'm also prepping on doing is I'm developing a strategic plan for what I want to do in social media. Is that there's going to be a bunch on recording. That's why these little sessions, in many ways, have been really great preparation. As we talk about different things like, I don't know, latency and kind of, imagine you unpack your DAW, you plug it in, you stick the thing and record. You're not running a hot microphone, although that happens too. So you'll get feedback there. But say you're running some digital signal into it, and you're like, why am I getting this delay? And you'll have no idea. And out to the internet you go. And, all right, well, it's latency. Now what? How do I solve that? So Nandini, kind of in many ways, you're as we're kind of going through your recording journey, there are a number of folks that are just kind of like, hey, until it's like you get your first car, and all of a sudden one day you get a flat tire. You never changed a tire before. There's only one way to learn, and it's usually happening by the side of the road when you're kind of broken down. It's a thing. So that's funny. So in addition to torturing himself, Doug is also tormenting me with the things he has me practicing. Absolutely, my friend. Ben Eller also advocates the burst method of practicing to gain high speed. I love Ben Eller, and I'm going to totally disagree. If you want to have speed, I'll make this analogy. Roll back the hands of time. I tell you, I'll roll back the hands of time in my life. Every time Melissa and I go down to Carmel, we pass by a church, and in that church there's a parking lot, and in that parking lot there's a hill, and at the bottom of that hill there's the chain link fence. And my stepfather, rest in peace, bless his dear soul, decided that was where I was going to learn to ride a bike. What he hadn't yet taught me was how to apply the brakes. So me, the bike, and the fence had an intimate interaction in a not fun way, and it was all fun and games until I kind of ran straight into the fence because I didn't know how to apply the brakes. So the point being is that I've been spending a profane amount of time. Not that my triplety guy with that guy necessarily reflected it, but that's okay. But I've been identifying different things. For example, if you're playing this A minor triad, we're splaying the notes of that A minor triad, A, C, and E across 3 strings. So that's kind of, if you will, a 1, 1, and 1. And this is a 1 and a 2. And this is a 2, 1, and 1. So if we're... And what's great about that is that gives you the ability to try every combination of how you would potentially play that minor triad in one. It's technically not in one position because we're changing positions here, but the root is located in one location. So the idea is the ability to just kind of go, okay, well, this is getting me used to playing down, up, or down, up, 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 down, up. And the way you get that fast through all those permutations, specifically per Dan's comment about self-torture, is that I really want to be able to take all those things that are hard and make them practiced enough so they become easy. And the only way to get there 80 BPM, 85, 90. And so what it allows you to do, because the thing is there are kind of tweener tempos. The hell. So the idea is if you're moving slowly, you can just kind of motor back and forth like that. But once you get to a certain rate, there's a certain bounce that your wrist gets. And it's kind of like if you kind of like flick your wrist, you can feel that there's again a bounce that's happening because of the rate that it's happening. But there's a point between rockers with walkers and the flick of the wrist where you're kind of pushing the pick. And if you don't learn to work from the slow up through the fast, you're going to have those spots that are in between. So the idea of then kind of going, okay, and the great thing about that is that this one in particular, and the great thing is I can see the direct results of the practicing, is that particular combination where it's the down, up, and crossing over on that outside picking. Sorry, that's going to be inside, and that's outside. Versus, sorry, I'm not playing minor. Sorry, you know what? Do me a favor. If you got a guitar, and you know, I played minor just because I felt sad after crashing the bike into the fence. But I actually would suggest doing this for A major, B minor, C sharp minor, D major, so on and so forth, and just walk that. C sharp, I said. Brain on. D. But that with the metronome is going to enable me to solve one of the biggest challenges I've got. Again, that crossing multiple strings like that is in that first arpeggio shape. Then you get this guy, and invariably, one of those combinations will probably be one of the ones you're like, oh, that's the hard one for me. So practicing all three is the way you do it, and you do it from slow to fast. That enables you to have a really holistic approach to solving these problems. Because I don't care who you are, you will have some technique. You're like, that's that thing, the bane of my existence, right? So having a strategy for working around that is in my opinion, the way to get there is to work slowly with the metronome. By the way, this is, you will have seen me do this before, but this is metronome beats. And it literally has this 5 BPM increment thing. And I think it's Metronome Beats app. Hang on a second. Let me find it. What I, one day, in kind of my stupidity, I kind of went, I don't know, maybe there's an online version of the app. And of course, there was. And so let me find the URL. Just one second. Metronome. There we go. Online metronome app. And you are, there you go. Metronome.app. So it's a great place to go, and it's great to have that in the browser. It means that you've got time everywhere. So my suggestion would be, not so much. Hello, sweetheart. Always a pleasure. Oh, look at you. You're on Facebook and YouTube. Albert, sigh, I have to dial out my delay crutch and practice more. Dang. Well, you know, here's the great thing, Albert. You know, the idea is, and it's really what I'm trying to do with my technique, is I'm trying to identify all the things that I'm not good at, so I can get good at them. And yeah, you know, the delay crutch is part of it. And, you know, depending on what your goals are, sometimes, okay, you know, this is what I want. However, I think I know a thing or two about you, and you ask the questions like, you know, how do we learn to kind of make, because that's one of my other things. I can't really make this sound anemic. I have turned the model off. So let me just turn this thing off. So or turn this back on. But the idea is like, how do I take a tone that doesn't have a lot on it? Let me head over to this guy. This guy. There's not an awful lot to work with there, right? But learning to kind of whatever it is that your thing is. The other thing is this, is that we're not necessarily going to go into our best speed picking thing when it doesn't necessarily have that type of a tone. So having some things that you develop when you have a sound that doesn't have a lot of natural sustain to it and doesn't have a lot of reverb or delay, and just kind of learning to find some things that you do there and develop that vocabulary as well. Armando, hello. Buenos dias. Habla español? No? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Spencer, before I retire, I need to buy a Marshall half stack. About 160 Social Security checks should cover it. I recommend Spark Go to anyone. Sounds amazing for an amp that you can literally put in your pocket. That's awesome. Awesome. Dan says, Spencer, if you ever get the chance, find Satriani JVM, one of the best Marshalls ever made. I wish I knew why Satch left. He didn't leave. I think they discontinued the amp, and it's actually one of Joe's amps, and it is phenomenal. It's a great amp. Great amp. The amp, you'll never, well, actually, I think you will guess whose Marshall I want to get my hands on. I was supposed to pick him up at the airport, so there's the hint. Craig, what's going on? Somebody's been fishing. The other thing, Albert, is that if you're relying on the delay and the reverb, which I certainly have done plenty to create the ambience, it also has a tendency to kind of create a floating point that will impact the amount of dynamics unless you're riding the volume control, which, again, quote unquote, I'm going to group us together as older players. We're probably inclined to do, right? So I would encourage you to kind of work with kind of care in the same way that we would have a conversation. I'm not saying that you don't do that in your playing, but in the same way that our cadence when we're speaking, we don't speak at the same volume level and the same tone, even if the pitch went up and down, but we don't speak at the same level. Slow is also another way to find it. And you begin to find some ways to move around when you don't have all the greasy stuff, and in turn, then when you put the greasy stuff back on, you have that contrast, which I think is a good one. I'm doing great, Craig. Thank you for asking. Pleasure to see you. Thanks for dropping in, man. Awesome. Dan, in a situation where there isn't much grease, I'll add a very light compressor. Dynacom usually for me is what that is, what I have lying around. So I have no idea what you're talking about. So I will encourage. First of all, it's a great point. So I do this I do this once a month acoustic gig. and last month, I think I told you, I threw together a pedal board, and I managed to end up at the venue one cable short, and I needed to borrow an extension cord. So this time, brought an extension cord, the power supply, and I won't mention the name of the brand. I bought this cable loom from a guy on Craigslist. One was about 20 feet, give or take, maybe 18. The other is like 40 feet long. I got both of them for $100. It was a crazy deal. There's like 5 cables and a power cable in each one. I mean, they were for big stages. One's for a shorter thing. The other I'll put in here. There's a bunch of TS, there are a couple TS cables, and then there are a number of TRS cables, and there's an AC run. So I get there, and I plug in my pedal board, and I'm like, the AC's not working on the loom. That's okay, I got another cable. I plug in my other AC thing. I'm like, that's not working either. So the point being is that my acoustic gig quite often is accompanied by a, wait for it, compressor, because the transient attack of the pick on the acoustic guitar, you got to learn to be supple, or else that transient attack will really take your head off, right? But the good news is, kind of with all this other work I'm doing, sitting there with the metronome going slow to fast, it really paid off. So I will encourage you. What's going on, Michael? Great to see you. Okay, hang on a second. First of all, this in the loop. Yes, yes, and yes. So, first of all, that on its own, but the deal is you can just use it in the ecosystem of your Helix all day long. And so, what's neat is it's Joe's captures done at Sammy's place, and it's like, why not just hook it in whatever flavor modeler you've got in the loop, so there you have it. So here's the thing is that the moral of the story is I ended up on that gig, and I was like, you know what, fine, I'm going to play without. The other thing about that thing on the acoustic guitar, traditionally I have a tendency to play with a yellow, I think I've talked about this before, a yellow Tortex versus, although this is black, this is a 1mm Tortex, which is traditionally blue. The point being, it's a thicker pick, so you get more transient attack. So traditionally when I play the acoustic, I'll play it with a yellow pick. It's a little bit thinner, and you just get a little bit less catch with so that's kind of not dissimilar to, in some senses, of easing of the transient attack that you would get with a compressor. However, there's a certain looseness that you're going to learn to get in your hand that the compressor is compensating for. And I say this because, this little bit of this guy right here, that's the one that for me was really hard. And so I literally, and there are a couple of things I'll do. I'll just isolate the hard part, and so that's if it's down, up, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Or that way I'm going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, or up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I'm just trying to just get my hand to the point where all the awkward things, I actually am trying to work on the awkward things. And it will work wonders for your technique. And the idea is that we also, the great thing about that type of practice is it builds confidence, and I think everybody as a player wants to find some things like, how do I just kind of build my confidence that when I pick up the guitar in any situation, and I've got a little bit more catch on whatever strings there, so I'm spending. So literally practicing the minor pentatonic. The hard part is not fours like that. It's fours like that. So it's basically, it's 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, and 1 if you think about one note on the 6th, 2 note on the 5th, 1 note on the 4th, and then it's coming back down. Or was a train wreck when I started doing it, because that's the uncomfortable part where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can go like this, fours all day long. But when I got to, I was like, oh my word, this is murder. And it's embarrassing. So I'm like, okay, 80 BPM, eighth notes. Probably a little slower. And it just has worked wonders. First of all, I love a compressor, and with all that said, if it makes you feel good and it brings you more joy, so long as my suggestion is it's not at the expense of one or the other, have at it. Serious question. No, not from you. Come on. Or at least for small gigs. Sound engineer, yes or no? I've had more bad experience with sound engineers than I've had bad dates. I think I missed this question the last time. So it's a really, really great question. So every great sound engineer probably started on a small, crappy gig. It's going to come out not as I really would prefer, but there's some people that are only good enough to mix small, crappy gigs, right? There's some people you would not necessarily want to have playing behind the kit because they actually can't keep time. They rush when they come out of the fills. They play too loud. They don't do rehearsal. They're more interested in beer than playing and rehearsing. Fill in the blank, drummer problems, right? So the idea is that, you're going to run into, in smaller situations like that, challenging situations with a PA. There's a venue that kind of a local venue Albert came and saw. And the PA was just kind of a disaster. And I think there was kind of a sound person there, but not an official sound person. And it was just kind of a mess. And the monitors were not in balance. And the mains weren't in balance. And it was just a disaster. And, I think 2 times ago, there was a sound person that probably made it harder for me to do my job than better. So, if you're inclined, you go scout the venue literally 7 days ahead of when you're going to go there. So, whatever day of the week it is, because most venues have this kind of weekly cycle, you get a chance to see what's going on the Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, whatever it is. So you can kind of go, okay, this is first of all the PA, this is what I got to deal with. And as you're assessing the person running sound or not running sound from the bar, kind of like, oh, I'll be right over. It allows you to just kind of go, okay, it's going to be this. And then you get a chance to make the decision, do I want to put myself through that? And if I'm going to have a good time, and again, part of my attitude these days is I'm like, well, okay, look, if it's not preventing you from doing something, using a compressor to kind of ease things up is cool so long, and Albert, you use the phrase crutch. We all have our crutches, and for me, that compressor, that acoustic gig, two months in a row, I'm like, no compressor for Doug, tough love. Now, I actually really enjoy that because I'm kind of like, you know what, I'm trying to get past the stuff that I kind of let myself slide on for way too long. As an end result, I'm like, oh, this is going to be really cool. And you just kind of learn, it's the same thing, Albert, we were talking about learning to lighten up. This little guy right here, my right hand wanted to catch that spot. So that's down, up. Did not want to, it just wanted to drag that upstroke through there. 80 BPM I went, eighth note triplets. That's not 80, that's faster, and then you just bumped it up. And ironically, when we started, I pulled out the metronome, it was at 140, and I was like, what was I practicing? Oh, that was exactly what it was. So I'd gone from 80, 85, 90, etc., up to 140, and I'm like, oh, and I can feel the difference. So the great thing is when you identify those trouble things and the trouble tempos, it allows you to kind of go, okay, well, let me just kind of bang away at that. And it takes a shockingly small amount of time to actually solve these problems. Oh, yeah, that Petrucci in the mix, it was just deadly. Just amazing. Unbelievably good. There we go. 2025, there we go. Oh, so good. There we go. He's a really nice guy. And yeah, and really don't miss him alive. Hello, Nandini again. You're awesome. All right, there we go. There we go. I have the same thing with my bike on a street called Steep Hill in Huntington Beach as a kid. I messed up my... Oh, that was talking about the brake thing. Okay, I'm that far behind. Yes. Yeah, it's a thing. And then there's the speed wobbles. That was after I learned how to brake. And yes, that Ingve amp. I desperately want to get my hands on one of those Ingve amps. And they are expensive. Holy cow. Rafael, buenos dias, mi amigo. ¿Cómo está? Bienvenidos. Dan, they're on Reverb. They're $3,500. They're expensive. They are really expensive. The other one I'd like to get my hands on is the Zach one, but that's a different conversation. Consider John Mayer come out. The funny thing. Hey, Andy, how are you, my man? You know, I was thinking about you 2 or 3 days ago, and you had your hair different at NAMM, and I felt so badly. If you're still here, let me know if you're still here, because I was like, I didn't recognize you, and I was like, gosh, because we're buds. So it's just, it was an awkward moment. But I just wanted you to know, I was thinking about you. 1.14, you macho man, you. All right, Dan Diablo Guitars in Seattle may have one. I don't remember the price, but I'm sure it's high. There we go. Chris, you're as bad as I am. Eric, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. There we go. 4,300. Oh, my word. Just say no. Nitin, what's happening, my man? So that is a great question. They are traditional potentiometer. No, I think you're asking the intelligent question. They're rotary encoders. So that is to say, they're I may be out of my element here, but I think the acronym is VCA, voltage controlled amplifier. That is to say, you're turning it up and down, but it's not a real pot, right? Which in can be good and can be bad, I guess. So in any case, it's awesome. I just love it. Oh, ditching me for your middle son's wedding in San Diego. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. All right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I got some stuff I need to do. I teach today, and I've got to try and cram in finishing this video that is kind of calling my name. It as always, and is always a pleasure to be here with you. Great question. No, they reach a point of stoppage. Great question. So very crafty. I wonder what knob I just turned. What are you? Okay. That was the bass. Okay. Well, I guess I kind of knew that if I'd looked at that thing. All right. The 43 is... the 3,500 is about what I've seen them going for. And there was somebody that had been out on the road with somebody that wasn't that famous that they wanted some obscene amount for on Reverb. Yes, I'm sorry. Hang on. I was distracted and being stupid. I literally have been up all night. Spencer, sorry. As Chris pointed out, congratulations. I hope, first of all, are you driving? Are you flying? I hope it's a safe trip. I hope you absolutely are as in love with the young lady as your son is. And congratulations. family is growing. That's a very special thing. Sorry, I kind of missed that cue. I'm not at my best because I'm a little sleep deprived, but that's a lame excuse. So you know what? I'm sorry for that. Totally missed that. Thank you, Chris. Congratulations. That is really, as somebody that knows the benefits of marriage and knows the disappointments of divorce, wife number one, that is, it's a two-sided coin, and I hope your son is eternally happy with his bride, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful wedding, and that expanding the family is actually a really is a special thing. So I'm happy for you, and I am glad that you're not going to be here because you're going to be in San Diego, growing the family. Well done, and I hope your son is very, very happy, and I hope you're again happy with the bride. In-lawdom is complicated. We'll leave it there. Albert, you're an inspiration and a friend. So let's. With pleasure, my friend, and it's always such an encouragement, and I love that. So thank you for that. Yeah, and that this guy across all those three strings, not like that. Oh, come on. And notice the one that I kind of farted out was that one. And by the way, if you initially go to switch between those and you're like, oh my word, it's like it's a little strange. So I have an exercise. Hold on. I missed the third finger on the way back. So that's a Vi exercise. You'll see him kind of, or thing. But the idea is what you're doing is getting used to replacing what a finger is playing the root there. So the fourth finger, second finger, first finger, second finger. So that's a really good way to kind of walk through that. So you might try that as well. Chris, I'm a bad influence, but I'm a good influence. Sonia, I very much look forward to talking Tonex 1 and Tonex pedal. By the way, I forgot to mention, there is a guy. You will know who he is. I'm not going to say his name. His two initials are C and C, and he's the fractal person to everybody. And I told him about your pedal, and I said, would you be interested in potentially having her send you one? Because he knows everybody. So let's communicate on that. So in any case, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I say it every time, but I'm so grateful because I don't know, I'd be sitting here practicing instead of hanging out with you. And actually, as much as I love practicing and I'm totally hooked on it, I'd rather hang out with you. So thank you for that. Have a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Chris, I always want to thank you. You always come up with these great questions, and you got me thinking about the reverb at the same time, and that sound, that long reverb on the lexicon. I wouldn't have done that if it hadn't been for you. And just kind of talking about the encoders and all that stuff, and the idea of really thinking is like, is a traditional potentiometer will kind of have a start and a stop, where an encoder. The funny thing is that technically, I think these are encoders, so the range, but because I don't think they're actually a pot. I think they're communicating digital information, but at the same time they feel like that. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of research and see at what point, because pot implies potentiometer. Does potentiometer mean that it's actually carrying signal through it? Or if it's some sort of controller, so to be determined. Hey Brett, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Thank you. I do too. So thanks for that, my friend. Mike, always a pleasure. Always love seeing you here. Adam, thank you. And likewise, I'm sure, have a Dream Theater kind of day and just enjoy the heck out of that. And again, everybody, thank you so much. And I'll see you next Saturday.